Sports lovers, welcome back to another episode of Global Sports from Caribbean Perspective, the ultimate place for all things sports. The best games, the best teams, best players, the best takes on global sports from a Caribbean perspective. I'm your host today, Shabba, and I'm here with
Dops, wagwan.
turning our passion into purpose. And as always, we'll have a pack show for you today. We'll kick things off by taking it back with this day in sporting history. Then we'll break things down from the Spanish Super Cup final and the sacking of Xabi Alonso and the ongoing fracases at Real Madrid. From there, we'll touch some FA Cup, some EFL Cup action, and some AFCON Cup of Nations action as well, previewing the final on Sunday. Then we'll be giving credit where it's due in our Man of the Match segment. So buckle up and let's get into it. So let's start by taking it back on this day in sporting history. Today is January the 15th in the year of our Lord 2026. And on this day in 2015, South African batsman A.B. de Villiers made history, making the fastest century in ODI history from just 31 balls during an innings of 149 against
Yeah, for sure.
the West Indies in Johannesburg in 2015. So on this day, AB de Villiers made the fastest ODI century in just 31 balls against the West Indies. Also on this day in history, in 1971, one of the greatest managers of all time was born, and that's Mr. Pep Guardiola, coach of Man City, formerly of Barca and Bayern Munich as well. Made 47 caps for Spain. We know him as one of the best managers of all time, probably the best manager currently. So happy birthday to Pep. And that was this day in history. But right now, let's switch gears and head over to discussing Sunday's Spanish Super Cup final that took place between Barcelona and Real Madrid. Barca were crowned champions of the Supercopa de España for a record extending 16th time as a Rafinha brace helped seal a 3-2 win over their classical rivals Real Madrid. The thrilling contest in Saudi Arabia saw 3 goals scored in first half stoppage time, but Rafinha's 73rd minute winner proved to be the difference on Sunday. After missing an opportunity to open scoring less than a minute earlier, he put Barcelona ahead in the 36th minute with a pinpoint shot into the bottom right corner. But the Brazilians' opener sparked an avalanche of goals at the end of the first half, with Vinicius Jr.'s fine solo run on the left-hand side seeing him breeze past Jules Kounde and Paul Kabasi before curling the ball beyond Joan Garcia. Robert Lewandowski then put Barca back in front in the 4th minute of stoppage time with a sublime dink over Thibaut Courtois after being picked out by a fine Pedri pass. However, the scoring was not done there. Rodrigo's corner was met by Dean Howson, whose header cannoned against the crossbar, yet the rebound fell kindly for Gonzalo Garcia to tuck away off the woodwork despite Frankie de Jong's effort on the line. Vinicius continued to be a threat after the break and saw an effort tipped over by Joan Garcia before Rodrigo forced another save from the Barca goalkeeper just after the hour mark. Lamine Yamal then saw a sliding attempt to punch away by Courtois, but just before a cooling break, Barca got themselves ahead for the 3rd time in the match as Rafinha's strike deflected off Raul Asensio into the net. The Blaugrana were forced to see out the final few minutes with a man less after De Jong was sent off for a 2-footed tackle on Kylian Mbappe, who came on in the second half. They were also made to pay in stoppage time, almost made to pay in stoppage time, but Alvaro Carreras and Raul Asensio fired tamely at Joan Garcia as Barca held on to take home the trophy. Just some quick stats before we get into a discussion. That's now 8 finals managed by Hansi Flick across his career for a total of 8 wins. So he's flawless so far in finals. That's 3 finals played versus Barca since Mbappe has joined the club. 3 losses. Vinicius Jr., though, is now tied with Cristiano Ronaldo for most goal contributions in a final for Real Madrid with 16. So that's a significant achievement by him there. Following the match, Alonso was dismissed of his role as Madrid coach, and we're gonna now dig into the aftermath of the game and Xabi's sacking. So where do you think we should start? Let's discuss the game first. I thought that we played very defensive. We sat deep behind the ball like a third division team against Barca, absorbing pressure, not really getting out of our half, barely threatening on the break. Every time it was a threat, it was only because of Vinny on the left hand side. Aside from that, there was nothing from us. Barca scored, we reacted, and then there was the avalanche of goals. But I don't think that we would have deserved to win that game. What do you think?
Uh, Fully agree with you. I mean, the only how we would have deserved to win the game is if we are taking all of the chances that were presented to us. As even though there weren't many, we had some clear cut chances where we were supposed to capitalize on. The one from Gonzalo, the one that Vinny missed earlier before the tremendous goal, and then the two that you mentioned earlier. So didn't take the chances. We deserved to lose. We, as you said, didn't come out to play. It was almost reminiscent of pet ball where we were just chasing shadows really and truly at some points, and no cohesion in the press. We didn't move as a unit. It was really an ISO for me as a Madrid fan, and understandably you could see why Xabi was sad.
And you mentioned that the way that we were, the respect that we were giving Barca as if they were the Pep era team. But we've seen on countless occasions every week in La Liga, there are teams who with less talent than us, less better players than us, take the game to Barca and cause them trouble every week. So the approach that Xabi took, if that was his decision for him to set up that way, was definitely, could be led to his demise. And one could understand why, because as President Perez sitting in the posh stands up there with Laporta, he wouldn't feel good looking at his team performing like that. Do you think that, okay, maybe if we won, he wouldn't have been sacked. Maybe it would have just delayed the
Delayed the
sacking, right?
inevitable.
But do you think that the way we played, because it's not a case where we were demolished on the scoreline, like past classical results, do you think the way we set up is what eventually led to him?
Yeah, because he's watching the game just like the rest of us, and he's a fan just like the rest of us. So having to sit next to the Barca president and see them dominate a game completely, and then lift another trophy in front of him is anything to get you off your seat, make rash decisions. Some might say, but I don't think Perez should be cleared of any blame. He has as much of the blame in this as anyone else because he hasn't given Xavi the backing, the players that he requested. Um, and it doesn't seem like even when there's a rift between him and the players internally, he hasn't stepped in to defend the manager, come to this. So, they kind of harbored an environment for toxicity.
And that's the road I want to go down, where basically Xabi was chosen to replace Ancelotti, and we know the type of manager Ancelotti is, not necessarily the most strict tactician, where they wanted to move away from that and get a young, modern tactician to mirror the rest of the teams in Europe. And the minute it hit a snag, the minute there was some friction, or the minute there was some tension within the team, or they were told to do something that they're not necessarily accustomed to doing, we're seeing it. We saw it from the El Clasico. At that point, Madrid were 4 points clear in the league. Just beat Barca for the first time in 4 games, and things were going well.
Yeah,
And just because, let's use that as an example, he was sub. Vinicius was subbed, and for once things didn't go his way. He threw a tantrum, and that undermined Xabi's authority. Because Vinicius is a big player, and we know the status he has at the club. Another thing that happened after the final whistle that I just wanted to touch on as well, an incident that was shown, that was caught on camera, where Xabi was basically ordering the team over to form a guard of honor for Barca to walk through, to applaud them as they go up to collect their medals and the trophy. And Kylian Mbappe was basically seen on camera telling the guys to come, and we saw Xabi looking like, what should I do here? He put his hands in his pocket, and he just trudged over in a moment like that. That is showing such. We don't know the exact context and if that's exactly what took place, but the images are striking. I just want your thoughts on that because that's a bad look.
Yeah, earlier I was like, "What going on with Mbappe them really?" But after I got a bit more context, because from what I understand is the cameraman was trying to take a photo of the Barca team or whatever, and probably already communicated to Mbappe and them that, just excuse us
Excuse,
for a moment. So maybe he was relaying that to Xabi.
maybe.
Maybe. That's the next piece of it I got. I don't know how true it is, but that's what I saw earlier today.
Okay. So Madrid have parted ways with Xabi Alonso, as we mentioned. The club decision came after they lost 3-2 in the Super Cup final against Barca. Alonso averaged 2.24 points per game across 34 games in all competitions. In La Liga, Madrid are 4 points behind Barca, and in Champions League, Madrid have been inconsistent, losing two of their last three games, big games as well against Man City and Liverpool. Issues in the dressing room, and the club felt they were at a point where they couldn't continue with the former club legend. It was always going to be a tricky situation, as we mentioned, for him taking over from Carlo Ancelotti, but things clearly didn't go well. We definitely wish him all the best. He's definitely gonna get another job, and we're gonna see that he wasn't the problem, in my opinion, because I think that he's a great tactician. Someone can't go from dethroning Bayern Munich as champions in Germany to 6 months later not being a good coach. There's things clearly wrong at the club. Um, I'm not sure who could come in and fix it. Alvaro Arbeloa was just named permanent manager. And we saw what happened in the first game. So let's move on quickly to that embarrassing defeat for Madrid against Albacete. Madrid have crashed out in the round of 16 after Jeff Bentancur's stoppage time strike saw Albacete currently 17th in the second division of Spain, 35 places below Madrid in the pyramid, to snatch a 3-2 victory, despite twice coming from behind at Albacete Stadium. Los Blancos were beaten in their first match under Alvaro Arbeloa, who took the reins following Xabi Alonso's departure. Madrid were dumped out of the Copa del Rey following their first ever defeat against Albacete in 15 meetings in all competitions. Arbeloa is only the second Madrid coach in the last 10 to lose his opening match in charge, following Julian Lopetegui in 2018, and we know how Lopetegui's stint ended. Madrid have only won 3 Copa del Reys in the last 32 years. That is an embarrassing statistic. The last time the Copa del Rey was won was in 2013, before that, 2014, and then 2011. Think of all the Copa del Reys that Barca has accumulated during that time, and that would definitely strike as a very embarrassing statistic.
3 and 32 years is West Indies type farm.
So, another embarrassing defeat. There were some first team players out there. We saw some academy players out there as well. Vinicius was out there. Franco Mastantuono got a goal. Gonzalo got another goal as well. Dean Housen played. The likes of Arda Güler played. What are your thoughts on the shocking performance yesterday?
Give my positive thoughts first. We played some youth. Can't remember his name. I'm not gonna even play. The
The
strength
midfielder,
PDM, yeah,
Sestero.
Cestero. That was good to see. These guys just get a nice little call up. You would expect, even though with some B string or C string team players, that we would beat the likes of Albacete, but it seems like they had other ideas. I thought that we would go to a really ugly stadium. Well, ugly in the sense of the pitch and not the infrastructure. Um, but it was a really beautiful scene, to be honest. A lovely carpet. I don't believe the Madrid players were expecting such a field, but yeah, we just can't defend shop because Barca took us apart in the Classico, whether it was set piece, whether it from home play, whether it was from counter attacks. And Albacete did the same thing. Counter attacks, set pieces. Anyhow you take it, we seem like we are always backpedaling, never in the right defensive formation to actually deal with the ball. And if the likes of an Albacete can do this to us, we are open for anybody really. It's open shop, open season. So it was really poor. I didn't see the match. I got home like
You couldn't believe the score. Yeah, I sat and took a look at the match from beginning to end, unfortunately, and I'd have to say that the players are the ones who are responsible here. This is no fault of Alvaro Abelo at all. He's been in charge for a day and some. He's come in and met this mess, right? And even coming off of a damaging defeat against Barca just a few days ago, where the players would be hurt mentally, you would think that they would come out and show some pride or some fight for the badge, as we tend to say, and put a performance on against a team who we mentioned are like
1 point from
1 point
relegation.
from relegation in the Spanish second division. Like, you should need your best players, your best team to beat Albacete. And the fact that they couldn't be asked basically to go out and put in a shift and show some fight, it clearly shows where they are mentally. And the game against Levante on the weekend at the Bonnabeu is going to be very interesting now, because this is going to be the first time back home in front of the fans, and after everything that has took place in the last couple of days, well, we've went out of 2 competitions in the last 4 days basically. So the chances of us winning trophies have now dwindled even further for another season, right? And this is going down the banter era route that we laugh after the likes of Manchester United and AC Milan for, because this is gonna be the second season. Let's keep it 100 here. Unless Barca collapse in the league, we're not gonna win the league, and in the Champions League we're not one of the 5 best teams. So if the players they don't care that much to go out and fight for the Copa del Rey, then it clearly shows that some major changes are needed, and we could single out players, but I don't think that any player is really up there for praise in this situation. So me singling out a player, hey, I'd be harsh on them, but I want to. Dean Howson. He came in with a lot of hype, started okay, but ever since the Atletico Madrid game where he had a poor game, it hasn't gone well for him. He started in the Clasico, we conceded 3, started yesterday, we conceded 3. And he's been touted as, the future of Spain and Madrid, but he's not looking like it at the moment. But to be fair as well to him, he's literally 19, 20 years old, coming from Bournemouth in the Premier League to playing for Real Madrid, the highest possible level in football. And maybe if Militao and Rudiger, the likes of Rudiger, have been fit, maybe he wouldn't have been having to play so much. But it's not been a good look on him. I don't know if you have any thoughts on Housen and how things have went badly for him.
I really feel like it's just a breakdown of the system. Um, yes, he's been poor in terms of personally for him, but I feel like they wanted him to be this deep line playmaker
From
per
the
se,
defense.
right? And it doesn't seem like there was the player rotation, first things first, or players just like Chouameni not making themselves available when necessary. Um, and then when he had to defend, he wasn't doing it to the level expected of him. Maybe a more senior player. I really don't think that. I think that's one of the main issues too. There isn't that like how we've had the Ramos and the Carvajal is there, but I'm not too sure how
Much of a leader he is,
he
actually.
is in the dressing room and how respected he is. It's crazy that Xabi Alonso didn't have the aura, not to say I'm straying, but the aura to, to have some respect, get some respect in the dressing room. And yeah, I just feel like all of that just fell apart and, chaos happening around you, you trying to settle in a team for the first time. It's really hard to, just adapt and deal with all of that at a very young age as well.
Yeah, so it might be harsh on Horsen to point him out individually, but he's not Sean. He started well, like I mentioned, but he has tailored off. But as Dopey rightly mentioned, the atmosphere and the environment around him is not necessarily favorable for him to succeed. Let's be real, right? And like you mentioned, if the players don't have respect or didn't have respect for someone like Xabi Alonso, who is a legend of football, achieved everything at the highest level, the World Cup, Champions League, everything, and at Madrid as well. If the players don't have respect for him, who are they gonna have respect for? If they're not gonna look at Alvaro Arbeloa coming in and be like, let's be attentive to him. There's this video that always goes around when Zidane was just appointed as manager and he went into the dressing room and you could see the smile on every player's face as they stood up and acknowledged him. And because that's aura, that's real aura, and maybe the players don't know how great Xabi Alonso was, but he clearly didn't garner that same amount of respect. And it's sad. It's sad because I want the club to go in the direction of getting a young tactical manager who knows about pressing, and we play in a modern style like the likes of Arsenal and Bayern, and we press high and counter press. But with these players, they're spoiled
Yeah,
clearly.
I feel like, as I said, Perez needs to share the blame as well, because he has allowed for that environment to take place. He's allowed for things to go this way, and the culture is there that from when since, bro, from ever since we've known the club, we are more of an individual brilliance. Yes, we've had tactics. Yes, we've had some fluidity here and there, but for the most part, it has been that individual brilliance or that star player that has bailed us out time and time again. And I feel like Perez has that culture in his head, but at the same time, he's going for a manager like Xabi Alonso. I don't think it's compatible,
Correct.
and we really need to have a better idea of the road that we want to go down. The recruitment needs to fit the manager. We can't buy Trent Alexander-Arnold and not have a centre forward like Igor Thiago or something.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying, bro. Like, we had Vinny already, but we're going for Mbappe. We're going on this galactical road. If we don't need a specific profile, or we already have that profile, there's no need to go into the market for it. Yes, you don't want anybody else to go forget the player, so but recruit with sense. If a youth player like Nico Paz fit the system more than a other goalie,
Get him.
get him in. Not don't send him out and Como. Yeah, that the
Exactly.
kind of vibes. That the kind of vibes I am. Because for me in flourishing at Barcelona, I mean that's their system, that's their style. But I mean, just take a page out of their book where it's necessary.
I definitely agree, and this is a very interesting topic, and a topic that not much people might delve that much deeply into, but we have a shared interest here, and it's clearly a major topic and something that has been ongoing for some time. And I would say that even despite winning recent Champions Leagues and recent league titles as well under Carlo Ancelotti, the same issues, all the issues that we just mentioned, the not signing players for a position but signing a name, all of those things, buying a manager to soothe the players' ego and not necessarily coach them. These things have been ongoing for some time now, and like I said, recent titles that would have been won definitely would have masked over some of those problems and papered over the cracks and made Madrid fans and the hierarchy think that everything is okay and that we're trending in the right direction. But when you buy players without proper planning, that's how you would end up with Chouameni and Camavinga in midfield not being able to string five passes together. That's how you would end up with three left wingers with Rodrigo, Vinicius, and Mbappe,
And three left backs.
and three left backs with Alvaro Carreras, Fran Garcia, and Forlan Mendy. That's how you sign Forlan Mendy on a contract when he should be getting out of the club. You know what I'm saying? So the problems are deep. It's not one single issue that is wrong with Real Madrid at the moment. And it's not being just this season. It's not just Kylian Mbappe coming in and destabilizing the balance of the team is the issue alone with the team. It's not just Vinicius's poor form over the last year since not getting the Ballon d'Or. It's not just Florentino Perez buying players without direction. It's a combination of all those things. And it's gonna take some time for it to fix. Mind you, in Madrid's war seasons, we've seen them sack managers and then go on to win the Champions League at the end of the season. So just like all of those things are within the culture, winning is still within the team's culture. And Arbeloa made an important point in his introductory press conference that he was basically asked like what his style is gonna be like, and he mentioned that at Madrid the style doesn't really matter. What matters is winning. Now that goes as far as it can sometimes, and when you don't win, as we see what's happening now, it can be hell, and we would look like clowns basically. So it's interesting to see where Arbeloa is gonna take the team. They have a game against Levante on the weekend at the Bonnebor, as I mentioned, and I'm sure the crowd are gonna voice their opinion to the team and to Mr. Perez. So just gonna run over the remaining results from the Copa del Rey this week, where every other La Liga team advanced to the quarterfinal of the competition except for who we were just discussing. So Athletic Club defeated Cultural Leonesa 4-3. Our city rivals Atletico Madrid defeated Deportivo La Coruña 1-0. Real Sociedad advanced on penalties against Osasuna after a 2-2 draw. Alaves defeated Rayo 2-0. Betis defeated Elche 2-1. Valencia defeated Burgos 2-0. And finally, Barca defeated Racing Santander 2-0 thanks to goals from Ferran Torres and Lamine Yamal today. And that wrapped things up in Spain. And we can now move over to England to look at some cup action that took place on the weekend and in midweek as well. So there was FA Cup third round action where defending champions Crystal Palace were eliminated by 6-tier Macclesfield in arguably the greatest upset in FA Cup history. Sunderland, Wolves, Burnley, Fulham, Man City, who defeated Exeter 10-1, with Semenyo scoring on debut. Newcastle, Brentford, Aston Villa defeated Tottenham, Chelsea, Leeds, Arsenal, West Ham, and Brighton. And Liverpool all advanced to the fourth round of the FA Cup. So all Premier League teams advanced. The fourth round draw was held on Monday, and teams currently in the top four have all avoided each other. Arsenal are facing Wigan, Aston Villa play Newcastle, Hull face Chelsea, Brighton face Liverpool, Man City face Salford. And those are some of the highlighted matches. So, not sure if you have anything from the FA Cup weekend.
I just say, when you think you have it bad, I mean, Newcastle losing to Macclesfield.
Crystal Palace, yeah.
Crystal Palace, sorry.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's actually crazy.
The man probably had their job.
We could move on to the EFL Cup semi-final that took place in midweek between Newcastle and Man City, where City won 2-0 thanks to another goal from Antoine Semenyo and Ryan Cherky. Semenyo made it 2 goals in two games to start his City career, helping his new team to take a 2-0 advantage over Newcastle in the EFL Cup semi-final first leg. The Ghanaian, who also scored on his debut in the FA Cup against Exeter, also had a second goal chalked off, but Ryan Cherky struck late to give the holders a mountain to climb. Semenyo announced himself in City's team at the weekend, but he once again played a key role for Pep's side as they took a 2-0 lead against City at St. James's Park. Any thoughts on that matchup in the midweek, Doc?
None really. Newcastle have been up and down. I mean, they are about 10th or so in the Premier League table. Didn't expect them to really do much against City, and Semenyo in gives City a huge boost. Coachable guy, seems like a very hard worker. So it'll be interesting how things go from here.
In the second semi-final, Arsenal defeated Chelsea 3-2 in the first leg at Stamford Bridge. Arsenal seized the advantage as Victor Gyökeres registered a goal and assist and an entertaining 3-2 victory at the Bridge. Liam Rosenier forced home game in charge of the Blues ended in defeat despite a second half brace from substitute Alejandro Garnacho, with Ben White and Martin Zubimendi joining Gyökeres on the score sheet. It's advantage Arsenal ahead of the second leg, though Chelsea will feel they are in the tie still thanks to Garnacho. The Argentine scored twice as a substitute against Cardiff in the previous round, and his 5 goals off the bench in all competitions are the most by any Premier League player this season. For Arsenal, Gyökeres scored his first EFL Cup goal since netting for Brighton against Portsmouth in September 2020, then registered his very first assist for the club. Any thoughts on Arsenal's victory against Chelsea at the bridge?
Chat, you ever play bat for catch? Because that's what Sanchez gave to Gyökeres. Honestly speaking, it was a huge error. Massive howler. Um, Beautiful, brilliant goals from Alejandro Garnacho. Some really wonderful strikes when you really look at them. But as you said, he kept Chelsea in the tie. It could have been a lot worse if it wasn't for him. But Sanchez really gave Arsenal that goal for Gyökeres. I mean, it was a simple cross across the box, and he was just supposed to pounce on it, and he just let it slip through for Gyökeres' goal. So it was really poor from Sanchez, and it would be a lovely second leg.
For sure, for sure. And that just continues Arsenal's momentum of, we mentioned they defeated Portsmouth as well in the FA Cup. They are top of the Premier League. They are doing well in the Champions League as well. So it'll be very interesting to see how many or if they end the season with trophies based on their current momentum. And that wraps up the coverage from the EFL Cup and the FA Cup in England. The Premier League returns this weekend, and we'll have that covered on our next episode. Just a quick Serie A update. In Serie A, Inter remain top of the table after a dramatic 2-all draw with defending champions Napoli at the San Siro. Goals from Fede Di Marco and Hakan Çalhanoğlu look to have secured the points, but reigning Serie A MVP McTominay struck twice to deny Inter all 3 points. Inter responded well, though, following up that with a 1-0 victory over Lecce in their makeup fixture after the Italian Super Cup, thanks to a Francesco Esposito winner. That result keeps Inter top on 46 points. AC Milan currently sit 3 points behind their city rivals, having taken 4 points from their last 2 games. Firstly, against Fiorentina, where Christopher Nkunku rescued a point with a 90th minute equalizer. Milan then defeated Como 3-1 today, thanks to a brace from Adrien Rabiot and Christopher Nkunku again, who seems to have found his footing in Italy. Defending champions Napoli, meanwhile, are struggling to find momentum, having drawn 3 consecutive matches, including a goalless draw against Parma, leaving them 6 points adrift of Inter. Juve and Roma round out the top 5, both sitting on 39 points. Juve are unbeaten in 7 and in strong form since their loss to Napoli, scoring 8 goals across their last 2 games. Roma, on the other hand, come into this round off a defeat against Torino, continuing to show some mixed form. So, as we continue to mention on GSCP, an exciting title race ongoing in Italy. Inter currently leading the pack, seem to be most consistent. However, Milan are only 3 points behind, with Nkunku and the likes of Rabiot picking up form. So, very interesting to see where it's gonna end up. Napoli not too far behind. We know that De Bruyne and Lukaku are not too far from returning, so that would add some firepower for them. Juve and Roma not too far behind as well. So just another interesting week in Italy again. And any thoughts?
Not really. Enough said. Same old, same old. Roma is another team you would like to see, back on top of Italian football. As you said, they have been inconsistent. So a little a little more consistency. I mean, for a team in the capital, you would expect them to be a big team. Uh, like in terms of any table fighting for titles every year, and it's crazy to see the fall off.
Yeah, so that wraps up our coverage from Serie A. There will be more action this weekend, and we'll have that covered in the next episode. The Bundesliga is back following the Christmas break, and Bayern Munich have picked up where they left off in devastating form. They've scored a combined 11 games in their first 2 games back from the Christmas break, starting with an emphatic 8-1 home win over Wolfsburg with Luis Diaz, Michael Olise, and Harry Kane all getting on the score sheet. Bayern then travelled to Cologne and secured a 3-1 victory with goals from Serge Gnabry, Kim Min-jae, and Lennart Karl, extending their lead at the top of the Bundesliga to 11 points over their nearest rivals, Borussia Dortmund. With 47 points on a goal difference of plus 53, though, Company's Bayern has played the best first half ever to a season in German football. The previous record was set by Pep Guardiola's team in 2013-14, also had 47 points, but with a goal difference of 47. So, despite we know that there might not be any competition for Bayern in the Bundesliga, they're off to their best ever start. That's very impressive based on the history and the impressive starts that they've had before. So credit to Vincent Company and the job that he's been doing with his team. They are currently flying. Anything from the Bundesliga? And I think it's gonna be like that until the end of the season as well. Right? The only exciting races would be for the top four with Dortmund, Leipzig, and Eintracht Frankfurt currently taking up the top four places. Moving on to a cup upset that took place in France. Jonathan Ikone continued his fine form in the Coupe de France, scoring the winning goal as Paris FC beat holders Paris Saint-Germain 1-0 at the Parc des Princes. PSG had 25 shots to the visitors' 4, but were unable to produce similar late heroics to their Trophy de Champion victory as they were dumped out of the Coupe de France in the round of 32.
Wow.
So they're not gonna complete a domestic treble this season again. PSG have been knocked out of the Coupe de France. That wraps up the top five of Europe action from this week and in the midweek. Just gonna give a quick African Cup update as the final is currently set for Sunday. Since our last episode, the quarterfinals and semifinals were played, and I'm just gonna run through those results quickly. So from the quarterfinals, Senegal defeated Mali 1-0 thanks to an Iliman Ndiaye goal. Senegal have now reached 6th African Cup semi-finals after doing so in 1990, 2002, 2006, 2019, and 2021. They have just conceded 6 goals in their last 13 knockout matches in the competition. Cameroon lost 2-0 to Morocco thanks to Brahim Diaz, who scored again, and a Saibari goal. Morocco, this is their fourth semi-final appearance since 2004. Brahim Diaz has become only the 4th player to score in 5 separate matches at the African Cup of Nations, after Abubakar, Malumba, and Jedo. Nigeria defeated Algeria 2-0 thanks to Victor Osimhen and Adams. Nigeria are only the 2nd team to ever score 2+ goals in their first 5 matches at a single African Cup of Nations, after Egypt did so in 1974 and in 2010. And the last quarterfinal matchup saw Egypt defeat Ivory Coast 3-2 thanks to goals from Omar Mamouche, Mo Salah, and Rabia. Egypt secured their 6th straight victory in the African Cup quarterfinals, meaning that they've went to 6 consecutive semifinals in the African Cup. Moving over to the semifinal results though, Senegal defeated Egypt 1-0 thanks to a Sadio Mane goal. Mane has tormented Egypt again as Senegal booked their place in Sunday's final with a deserved 1-0 win over the Pharaohs. Mane, whose penalty decided shootout against Egypt in the last African Cup final and against Senegal in a 2002 playoff qualification game, beat Mohamed El Shanawi with a sweet strike to decide a cagey affair in the semi-final. Senegal have now reached the final at 3 of their last 4 editions of the African Cup of Nations, having won the competition in 2022 and finished runner-up in 2019. In the second semi-final, Morocco defeated Nigeria 4-2 on pens after a 0-0 draw. Morocco reached their first African Cup of Nations final since 2004 as Yassine Bono's penalty heroics sealed a 4-2 shootout win over Nigeria. Bono denied Samu Chukwueze, with Youssef Enesiri scoring the deciding penalty to set up a date with Senegal in the showpiece match. This is the second consecutive edition in which the host nation has reached the final after Ivory Coast did so in 2023. Any thoughts on the overall AFCON and the final on Sunday?
Yeah, these were who the bookies would have predicted to reach the finals. Even the semi-finals, I believe those 4 teams were, the ones that they would have picked. I was expecting an upset in the semi-finals. more so in the game with Senegal and Egypt as opposed to the Morocco and Nigeria, as Morocco was playing home and had the home advantage. But yeah, it looked like it was more likely to happen in the Nigeria Morocco game. The penalty from Chukwueze was poor. That game wasn't really an exciting one, I
Yeah,
must say.
yeah.
I was expecting an end-to-end affair, especially with all the talent on show. But I am hoping for, one on Sunday, a power pack game. And I'm expecting Senegal to take it home, honestly.
I agree, and I have to agree, and because I've backed Senegal, even when we had our World Cup preview as one of the dark horses for the World Cup, so I have to remain consistent and go with them on Sunday, defeating the home team Morocco in the final. It hasn't been the greatest competition. Let's be honest. Um, we only saw one goal across two semi-finals. In games where we expected more, as you mentioned, our four teams have a lot of quality in attacking areas. So hopefully the final would have a bit more entertainment, but I'm expecting much of the same. A cagey affair, maybe a one goal victory for Senegal. So that's my prediction. I'll go with 1-0 to Senegal. And before we get to our man of the match, any random mentions?
Yeah, just hard luck to the Vinci ladies cricket team. They were dethroned um recently in the concluded women's Windward Islands T20 cricket competition. Grenada defeated them. It was a well contested game. It seems like Grenada were 28 for 6 until we had two young ladies, Taylor Dixon and Aria Fortune, 24 and 22, who, were resolute and built a partnership or contributed to a score where they ended up on 103 for 8 after 20 overs. Vinci fell short, as I said, but there was a really good knock from Janelia Glasgow. Um, 39 off of 50, 57. She actually got the most runs in the competition, so big up to her. And Chanel Mackey got the best fielder. Both of those young ladies got called up for the Windward Islands squad. So congratulations to you guys and hard luck on the competition. So.
Yes. So hard luck on the competition, but congratulations on the call up. And that with that, before we close things out, it's time to highlight some excellence in our man of the match segment. My man of the match this week is someone who we mentioned earlier for Man City, and I'm gonna go with Antoine Semenyo. Has scored 2 goals in two since joining City from Bournemouth in the January transfer window. He is the first player to score on both of his first appearances for City in all competitions since Emmanuel Adebayo in August 2009. And with 12 goals in all competitions this season, he is only behind Igor Thiago and Erling Haaland for most goals amongst Premier League players in all competitions. So my man of the match this week is Antoine Semenyo.
All right. My man of the match is Andre Kramaric from Hoffenheim. He scored a hat trick against Borussia Mönchengladbach in a 5-1 win. That's a great shout out to him as he is the highest scoring Croatian in the Bundesliga. He's been there since about 2016, so it's great that he could complete that feat. And yeah, he's one of those guys who kind of goes on the radar. He has quality. He was playing for Leicester at one point in time, so it's good to see that he's back the hat trick and he's still doing his thing at 34 years of age.
And there you have it. That's our man of the matches. Excellence recognized. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of Global Sports from a Caribbean perspective. We break down the best games, the best teams, we have the best players, and give you the best takes on global sports from Caribbean perspective. I'm your host, Shabba, and this is
Daps.
So until next time, stay locked in. One Global.
One global.